Prophecy from the Hopi Nation by Thomas Banyacya, Sr., the Speaker of the Wolf, Fox and Coyote Clan, Elder of the Hopi Nation. You have been telling the people that this is the 11th hour. Now, you must go and tell the people that this is the hour, and there are things to be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in the right relationship? Where is your water? No, your garden. It is time to speak your truth. Create your community. Be good to each other. Do not look outside yourself for a leader. There is a river flowing now very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel they are being pulled apart and will suffer greatly. Understand that the river knows its destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, keep our eyes open and our heads above water. And I say, see who is in there with you. Hold fast to them and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to an end. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves, banish the word struggle from your attitude and vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are all about to go on a journey. We are the ones we have been waiting for. In this video, I will be sharing an interesting creation story of a peaceful people known as one of the oldest living cultures in documented history, with a past stretching back thousands of years. Loloma, that means hello in Hopi. I am Daisy, your hostess. I mentioned in a previous video that I am putting together a few videos on creation stories. I find it quite interesting how many different creation stories there are, and yet, for the diversity and time gaps, they all seem to have a few things in common. And if you already know what they have in common, you can leave me a comment. Let's start a conversation. This story of creation is of people who currently have descendants and live here in my own hemisphere, the Hopi. They are the westernmost Pueblo Native Americans and are said to be the only Pueblo peoples to speak a dialect of the Uto Aztecan language family. Hopi is an abbreviation of their word Hopito, meaning peaceful ones. Hopi village life revolves around this concept. To be Hopi involves revering and respecting all things and is deeply rooted in religion, spirituality, morality, and ethics. They're one of the few groups of Native Americans who have generally maintained their culture despite many historical obstacles, to include most recent modern education and economics, which places strain on traditional Hopi life. I have a few interesting points I'd like to share with you and have added resource links in the description of this video, as well as a link for you to jump ahead right to their story of creation if you so feel inclined. Or you can sit back and relax as I share them with you. Ah, you chose to sit back and relax. Super. Now let me tell you about what I learned. The Hopi are a Native American nation with a rich and important history laced with tales of mythology, culture, warfare. I've got a warfare story for you, and more. The Hopi occupied different villages on what they called the First Mesa, Second Mesa, and Third Mesa, a rocky formation carved by erosion out of the Colorado Plateau between the Colorado River and the Rio Grande. The historical territory of the Hopi is now a part of present-day northeastern Arizona, on over 2,500 square miles of land and have over 18,000 people. As I mentioned earlier, the Hopi language is an Uto-Aztecan language. It is spoken by only about 5,000 people, of which they say that 40 are monolinguals. The Hopi language is not a written one, and it had remained untranslated until very recently. However, they do have a strong oral literature and history tradition. The language currently faces endangerment, and correspondingly, so does the Hopi culture and history. By sharing this video, you and I honor and act as gatekeepers of Hopi wisdom. The Hopi village of Oraibi is thought to be the oldest continuously inhabited settlement in the United States, dating back more than a millennium. They have survived in their Mesa homeland for centuries, and although their culture is changing, their core values remain intact and central to their culture. Oraibi is a Hopi village located on the Third Mesa in northeastern Arizona, and it remained unknown to European explorers until about 1540, when Spanish explorer Don Pedro de Tovar encountered the Hopi while searching for the legendary 7 Cities of Gold. Today, visitors to the pueblo are welcomed. Residents tend to be very private and do not allow photographs. Early 21st century population estimates indicated more than 18,000 individuals of Hopi descent. The majority are enrolled in the Hopi tribe of Arizona. The Bureau of Indian Affairs uses a blood quantum definition, generally 1/4 Native American blood and or tribal membership, to recognize an individual as Native American. However, each tribe has its own set of requirements. The precise origin of the Hopi is unknown, although it is thought that they and other Pueblo peoples descended from the ancestral Pueblo Anasazi, whom the Hopi call Hisatsinom, ancient people. They are said to be related to the Mexican Aztecs, and they likely arrived in what is now Arizona between 5,000 and 10,000 years ago. Archaeology has revealed that some abandoned pueblos, such as Sikyatki and Awatobi, were once occupied by Hopi people. Hopi origin traditions tell that their ancestors climbed upward through underground chambers called kivas and lived in many places before reaching their present settlements in this, presently known as the Fourth World. And as you listen to the story of creation, those with eyes to see and ears to hear can't help but wonder, did these people whose ancestors walked the earth were led into underground bunkers, awaiting some disaster, and merged anew? Again, being tested to preserve a divine plan and hoping not to fail again. Let me backtrack to the abandoned pueblo of Awatobi, because here we learn of a battle that tested the Hopi's resilience in preserving their culture and way of life. Awatobi was founded sometime after 1300, according to ceramics recovered from the archaeological excavations of Awatobi. It quickly grew to be the largest and most important village within the Hopi area. It housed members of the Bao clan and was the largest of the villages on Antelope Mesa, Second Mesa, Arizona. The story is told that more than 300 years ago, A revolt at this Hopi pueblo was the site of a violent clash of religion and culture. In 1700, Hopi traditionalists massacred Christian converts and destroyed all remnants of Spanish influence in an effort to preserve their unique identity. During the 16th and 17th centuries, Spanish conquistadors, in their search for the legendary Seven Cities of Cibola, or Seven Cities of Gold, asserted control over the numerous Puebloan towns. These white settlers brought Christianity with them. They often used religion as a tool of oppression and banned the traditional spiritual practices. Franciscan and Jesuit priests succeeded in converting many Native Americans, although the Puebloans secretly blended their traditional spirituality with Christianity in their own ceremonies held in their kiva chambers. The cultural tensions, famine, and brutal treatment of the native population eventually precipitated a coordinated rebellion in which the Spanish were overwhelmed by a surprise attack by every pueblo on the same day. Unfortunately, the Spanish gradually reasserted control by 1692. The native inhabitants of Ahwatovi were divided on welcoming back the European Christian influence. Following an ultimatum issued by Hopi traditionalists in 1700, all men who cooperated with the Spanish or adopted Christianity were slaughtered, and the church was destroyed. And interesting enough, Hopi generally means people of peace, and violence is anathema to their belief system, so the traditionalists had to call upon a special Katsina ogre spirit to descend on the village and carry out the ultimatum. So following this devastating tragedy, Ahwatovi was permanently abandoned, and the Spanish never returned to the Hopi territory, and as a direct result of the Ahwatovi revolt, the Hopi culture today is distinct from other pueblos for not including any European or Christian elements in their ceremonies, which continue to be performed much the same as they were hundreds, if not thousands, of years ago. Sadly, though, in 1890, some residents who sought a more modern way of life moved to the base of Third Mesa and founded Lower Oraibi, or Kiakatsmovi village, which is sometimes called New Oraibi. Kiakatsmovi is the tribal seat and has a store, post office, and school. I myself, having been a mayor for our city here in Lake Helen, Florida, I found it quite interesting, and I'm sharing a link to one of their most recent commission meeting. Interesting how they were using duo language and hearing some of their concerns. And farming is quite important to them, a practice that is being endangered due to modern influences. Corn occupies a significant position in the Hopi society and culture. For Hopis, agriculture has been a way of life, and their ceremonies mark the different phases of Hopi agriculture cycle. Besides corn, Hopis also cultivated squash, beans, and sunflower. The Hopi farmers mostly follow dry farming practices. Generally, these crops are cultivated in small fields in various areas that are located near the mesas, using 5 different agriculture methods: flood water farming, action farming, irrigated gardening, cultivating sand dune fields of beans, and growing fruit trees. In the last few decades, many Hopi have stopped farming and producing food with devastating effects on the tribe's health. By the early 2000s, a high proportion of the formerly lean Hopi were obese, and nearly a fifth had high blood pressure or diabetes, according to an assessment by the Natwami Coalition, an affiliation of Hopi organizations dedicated to preserving Hopi farming traditions and strengthening the local food system. Now, instead of growing their food, many Hopi drive a 4-hour round trip to supermarkets off the reservation and pay a premium for gas and groceries. I read an article and also added a video from a 250 generation Hopi dry farmer, Dr. Michael Kotuwa Johnson, who had the wisdom to walk the two worlds because he saw his way of life being threatened, and obtained his doctorate degree in natural resources from the University of Arizona. He is a member of the Hopi tribe in northern Arizona and said, quote, "They are forgetting who they are, and they go to find something to fill those voids that would have otherwise been filled by hunting or by raising plants." End quote. Not farming, losing their independence, and losing their connection with their traditional practices has taken a toll on the Hopi's physical health as well as on their psychological health. Johnson says, the biggest barriers to Hopi farming come from lack of support from the outside world. Even if that support means just allowing the Hopi to adapt in their own way. Despite nearly 50 years of farming his fields, building a house high on a hill, one stone slab at a time, and his ancestors' long history of tending to, caring for, and protecting the environment, one fact stands stark. The Hopi don't own their lands. Like other Native American tribes, the Hopi tribe is in a trust relationship with the federal government. The United States holds legal title to reservation lands, and tribe holds the beneficial title. They can live on the reservation, but they don't have absolute title to their own lands. This one fundamental fact leads to many of the barriers facing Hopi farmers today. The Hopi cannot make decisions about their lands or govern in a way that adapts to changing circumstances without first gaining approval from the federal government. It has been a struggle indeed for the Hopi to preserve their history. According to their origin stories, when the Hopi people first emerged into this world, they met with Masaw, guardian and caretaker of the earth, who granted them a gourd filled with water, a planting stick, and corn seeds. All they needed to grow food. But to survive, Masaw said they would need one more vital ingredient: faith. Faith in everything they do. For the Hopi, that meant always planting corn and farming, whatever the obstacles. Their accounts of creation center around Tawa, the sun spirit. Tawa is the creator, and it was he who formed the first world out of Tokpela, or endless space, as well as its original inhabitants. When a Hopi baby is born, relatives place a perfect ear of white corn, a corn mother, beside the infant. Then, 2 weeks later, a paternal aunt puts a small piece of sweet corn pudding in the baby's mouth and raises them to the sun. It's to remind them where they're from and ground them in our ways, says Johnson. For the Hopi, those ways, their culture, lifestyle, religion, and philosophy on life are all wrapped up in farming and caring for the land, and there is no separation between their agriculture system and their spiritual beliefs. One story has it that it was Masawu who helped settle the Hopi at Oraibi and gave them stewardship over the land. He also charged them to watch over the coming of the Pahana, the lost white brother. Other important deities include the twin war gods, the Kachinas, and the trickster coyote. As a collective group, the aim of the Hopi is to live with complete reverence, respect, and peace for all things. To preface the Hopi story of creation, I found this lovely prayer poem from Kawquai, Asquali. Let me walk in beauty, and make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunset. Make my hands respect the things you have made, and my ears sharp to hear your voice. Make me wise, so that I may understand the things you have taught my people. Let me learn the lessons you have hidden in every leaf and rock. I seek strength, not to be greater than my brother, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me always ready to come to you with clean hands and straight eyes. And now I invite you to join me as I share with you the myths, creation of the four worlds from the book titled Book of the Hopi, authored by Frank Waters. Chapter 1. Tokpela, the first world. The first world was Tokpela, endless space. But first, they say there was only the creator, Taiowa. All else was endless space. There was no beginning and no end, no time, no shape, no life. Just an immeasurable void that had its beginning and end, time, shape, and life in the mind of Taiowa, the creator. Then he, the infinite, conceived the finite. First he created Sotungnag to make it manifest, saying to him, I have created you, the first power and instrument as a person, to carry out my plan for life in endless space. I am your uncle, you are my nephew. Go now and lay out these universes in proper order so they may work harmoniously with one another according to my plan. So Tugnang did as he was commanded. From endless space he gathered that which was to be manifest as solid substance, molded into forms, and arranged them into 9 universal kingdoms. One for Taiowa the creator, one for himself, and 7 universes for the life to come. Finishing this, Sotunang went to Taiowa and asked, Is this according to your plan? It is very good, said Taiowa. Now I want you to do the same thing with the waters. Place them on the surfaces of these universes so they will be divided equally among all and each. So Sotunang gathered from them endless space that which was to be manifest as the waters and placed them on the universes so that each would be half solid and half water. Going now to Taiowa, he said, I want you to see the work I have done and if it pleases you. It is very good, said Taiowa. The next thing now is to put the forces of air into peaceful movement above all. This Sotunang did. From endless space he gathered that which was to be manifest as the airs, made them into great forces, and arranged them into gentle, ordered movements around each universe. Taiowa was pleased. You have done a great work according to my plan, nephew. You have created the universes and made them manifest in solids, waters, and winds, and put them in their proper places. But your work is not yet finished. Now you must create life and its movement to complete the 4 parts, Tuwaqachi, of my universal plan. Spider-Woman and the Twins. Sotunang went to the universe wherein was that to be Tokpela, the first world, and out of it he created her who was to remain on that earth and be his helper. Her name was Koyangwuti, Spider-Woman. When she awoke to life and received her name, she asked, Why am I here? Look about you, answered Sotunang. Here is this earth we have created. It has shape and substance, direction and time, a beginning and an end. But there is no life upon it. We see no joyful movement. We hear no joyful sound. What is life without sound and movement? So you have been given the power to help us create this life. You have been given the knowledge, wisdom, and love to bless all the beings you create. That is why you are here. Following his instructions, Spider Woman took some earth, mixed with it some tuchvala, liquid from mouth, saliva, and molded it into two beings. Then she covered them with a cape made of white substance, which was the creative wisdom itself, and sang the creation song over them. When she uncovered them, the two beings, twins, sat up and asked, "Who are we? Why are we here?" To the one on the right, Spider Woman said, "You are Bokanghoya, and you are to help keep this world in order when life is put upon it. Go now around all the world and put your hands upon the earth so that it will become fully solidified. That is your duty." Spider Woman then said to the twin on the left, "You are Polangwahoya, and you are to help keep this world in order when life is put upon it. This is your duty now. Go about all the world and send out sound so that it may be heard throughout all the land. When this is heard, you will also be known as Echo, for all sound echoes the Creator." Bokanghoya, traveling throughout the earth, solidified the higher reaches into great mountains. The lower reaches he made firm but still pliable enough to be used by those beings to be placed upon it and who would call it their mother. Palongowoya, traveling throughout the earth, sounded out his call as he was bidden. All the vibratory centers along the earth's axis from pole to pole resounded his call. The whole earth trembled. The universe quivered in tune. Thus he made the whole world an instrument of sound, an instrument for carrying messages, resounding praise to the Creator of all. "This is your voice, uncle," Sotunang said to Taiowa. "Everything is tuned to your sound." "It is very good," said Taiowa. When they had accomplished their duties, Bokanghoya was sent to the North Pole of the world axis and Palongoya to the South Pole, where they were jointly commanded to keep the world properly rotating. Bokanghoya was also given the power to keep the earth in a stable form of solidness. Palongohoya was given the power to keep the air in gentle, ordered movement and instructed to send out his call for good or for warning through the vibratory centers of the earth. "These will be your duties in time to come," said Spider Woman. She then created from the earth trees, bushes, plants, flowers, all kinds of seed bearers and nut bearers to clothe the earth, giving to each a life and name. In the same manner, she created all kinds of birds and animals, molding them out of earth, covering them with her white substance cape, and singing over them. Some she placed to her right, some to her left, others before and behind her, indicating how they should spread to all four corners of the earth to live. Sotunang was happy seeing how beautiful it all was, the land, the plants, the birds and animals, and the power working through them all. And joyfully he said to Taiowa, "Come see what our world looks like now." "It is very good," said Taiowa. "It is ready now for human life, the final touch to complete my plan." Creation of mankind. So Spider Woman gathered earth, this time of 4 colors: yellow, red, white, and black, mixed with Tokpela, the liquid of her mouth, molded them, and covered them with her white substance cape, which was the creative wisdom itself. As before, she sang over them the creation song, and when she uncovered them, these forms were human beings in the image of Sotunang. Then she created 4 other beings after her own form. They were Wuti, female partners, for the first 4 male beings. When Spider-Woman uncovered them, the forms came to life. This was at the time of the dark purple light, Koyang Nuptu, the first phase of the dawn of creation, which first reveals the mystery of man's creation. They soon awakened and began to move, but there was still a dampness on their foreheads and a soft spot on their heads. This was at the time of the yellow light, Sikan Nuka, the second phase of the dawn of creation, when the breath of life entered man. In a short time the sun appeared above the horizon, drying the dampness on their foreheads and hardening the soft spot on their heads. This was the time of the red light, Talava, the third phase of the dawn of creation, when man, fully formed and firmed, proudly faced his Creator. "That is the sun," said Spider-Woman. "You are meeting your father, the Creator, for the first time. You must always remember and observe these 3 phases of your creation. The time of the 3 lights, the dark purple, the yellow, and the red reveal in turn the mystery, the breath of life, and warmth of love. These comprise the Creator's plan of life for you as sung over you in the Song of Creation." Song of Creation. The dark purple light rises in the north. A yellow light rises in the east. Then we of the flowers of the earth come forth to receive a long life of joy. We call ourselves the butterfly maidens. Both male and female make their prayers to the east. Make the respectful sign to the sun, our Creator. The sounds of bells ring through the air, making a joyful sound throughout the land, their joyful echo resounding everywhere. Humbly I ask my Father, the Perfect One, Taioa, our Father, the Perfect One creating the beautiful life, shown to us by the yellow light, to give us perfect light at the time of the red light. The Perfect One laid out the perfect plan and gave to us a long span of life, creating song to implant joy in life. On this path of happiness, we the butterfly maidens carry out his wishes by greeting our Father Sun. The song resounds back from our Creator with joy, and we of the earth repeat it to our Creator. At the appearing of the yellow light, repeats and repeats again the joyful echo, sounds and resounds for times to come. The first people of the first world did not answer her. They could not speak. Something had to be done. Since Spider-Woman received her power from Sotunang, she had to call him and ask him what to do. So she called Balungohoya and said, "Call your uncle. We need him at once." Balungohoya, the Echo twin, sent out his call along the world axis to the vibratory centers of the earth, which resounded his message throughout the universe. "Sotunang, our uncle, come at once. We need you." All at once, with the sound as of a mighty wind, Sotunang appeared in front of them. "I am here. Why do you need me so urgently?" Spider-Woman explained, "As you commanded me, I have created these first people. They are fully and firmly formed. They are properly colored. They have life. They have movement. But they cannot talk. That is the proper thing they lack. So I want you to give them speech. Also, the wisdom and the power to reproduce so that they may enjoy their life and give thanks to the Creator. So Sutunang gave them speech, a different language to each color, with respect for each other's difference. He gave them the wisdom and the power to reproduce and multiply. Then he said to them, "With all these I have given you this world to live on and to be happy. There's only one thing I ask of you, to respect the Creator at all times. Wisdom, harmony, and respect for the love of the Creator who made you. May it grow and never be forgotten among you as long as you live." So the first people went their directions, were happy, and began to multiply. The nature of man. With the pristine wisdom granted them, they understood that the earth was a living entity like themselves. She was their mother. They were made from her flesh. They suckled at her breast. For her milk was the grass upon which all animals grazed, and the corn which had been created specially to supply food for mankind. But the corn plant was also a living entity, with a body similar to man's in many respects, and the people built its flesh into their own. Hence corn was also their mother. Thus they knew their mother in two aspects, which were often synonymous as Mother Earth and the Corn Mother. In their wisdom, they also knew their father in two aspects. He was the sun, the solar god of their universe. Not only he first appeared to them at the time of the red light, Talowa, had they been fully formed, yet his was but the face through which looked Taiowa, their creator. These universal entities were their real parents, their human parents being but the instruments through which their power was made manifest. In modern times, their descendants remembered this. When a child was born for 20 days, and during this period he was kept in darkness, for while his newborn body was of this world, he was still under the protection of his universal parents. If the child was born at night, 4 lines were painted with cornmeal on each of the 4 walls and ceiling early next morning. If he was born during the day, the lines were painted the following morning. The lines signified that a spiritual home, as well as a temporal home, had been prepared for him on earth. On the first day, the child was washed with water in which cedar had been brewed. Fine white cornmeal was then rubbed over his body and left all day. Next day, the child was cleaned, and cedar ashes were rubbed over him to remove the hair and baby skin. This was repeated for 3 days. From the 5th day until the 20th day, he was washed and rubbed with cornmeal for 1 day and covered with ashes for 4 days. Meanwhile, the child's mother drank a little of the cedar water each day. On the 5th day, the hair of both child and mother was washed, and 1 cornmeal line was scraped off each wall and ceiling. The scrapings were then taken to the shrine where the umbilical cord had been deposited. Each 5th day thereafter, another line of cornmeal was removed from walls and ceiling and taken to the shrine. For 19 days now the house had been kept in darkness, so that the child had not seen any light. Early on the morning of the 20th day, while it was still dark, all the aunts of the child arrived at the house, each carrying a corn mother in her right hand, and each wishing to be the child's godmother. First the child was bathed, then the mother, holding the child in her left arm, took up the corn mother that had lain beside the child and passed it over the child 4 times from the navel upward to the head. On the first pass, she named the child. On the second, she wished the child a long life. On the third, a healthy life. If the child was a boy, she wished him a productive life in his work on the 4th pass. If a girl, that she would become a good wife and mother. Each of the aunts in turn did likewise, giving the child a clan name from the clan of either the mother or father of the aunt. The child then given back to its mother. The yellow light by then was showing in the east. The mother, holding the child in her left arm and the corn mother in her right hand, and accompanied by her own mother, the child's grandmother, left the house and walked toward the east. Then they stopped, facing east, and prayed silently, casting pinches of cornmeal toward the rising sun. When the sun cleared the horizon, the mother stepped forward, held up the child to the sun, and said, "Father, son, this is your child." Again she said this, passing the corn mother over the child's body as when she had named him, wishing for him to grow so old he would to have lean on a crook for support, thus proving that he had obeyed the Creator's laws. The grandmother did the same thing when the mother had finished. Then both marked a cornmeal path toward the sun for this new life. The child now belonged to his family and the earth. Mother and grandmother carried him back to the house, where his aunts were waiting. The village crier announced his birth, and a feast was held in his honor. For several years the child was called by the different names that were given him. The one that seemed most predominant became his name, and the aunt who gave it to him became his godmother. The corn mother remained his spiritual mother. For 7 or 8 years he led the normal earthy life of a child. Then came his first initiation into a religious society, and he began to learn that, although he had human parents, his real parents were the universal entities who had created him through them. His mother earth, from whose flesh all are born, and his father sun, the solar God who gives life to all the universe. He began to learn, in brief, that he too had 2 aspects. He was a member of an earthly family and tribal clan, and he was a citizen of the great universe, to which he owed a growing allegiance as his understanding developed. The first people, then, understood the mystery of their parenthood. In their pristine wisdom, they also understood their own structure and functions, the nature of man himself. The living body of man and the living body of the earth were constructed in the same way. Through each ran an axis, man's axis being the backbone, the vertebral column, which controlled the equilibrium of his movements and his functions. Along this axis were several vibratory centers, which echoed the primordial sound of life throughout the universe, or sounded a warning if anything went wrong. The first of these in man lay at the top of the head. Here, when he was born, was the soft spot, Kopavi, the open door, through which he received his life and communicated with his Creator. For with every breath the soft spot moved up and down with a gentle vibration that was communicated to the Creator. At the time of the red light, Talawa, the last phase of his creation, the soft spot was hardened and the door was closed. It remained closed until his death, opening then for his life to depart as it had come. Just below it lay the second center, the organ that man learned to think with by himself, the thinking organ called the brain. Its earthly function enabled man to think about his action and work on this earth. But the more he understood that his work and actions should conform to the plan of the Creator, the more clearly he understood that the real function of the thinking organ called the brain was carrying out the plan of all creation. The third center lay in the throat. It tied together those openings in his nose and mouth through which he received the breath of life and the vibratory organs that enabled him to give back his breath in sound. This primordial sound, as that coming from the vibratory centers of the body of earth, was attuned to the universal vibration of all creation. New and diverse sounds were given forth by these vocal organs in the forms of speech and song. Their secondary function for man on this earth, but as he came to understand its primary function, he used the center to speak and to sing praises to the Creator. The fourth center was the heart. It too was a vibrating organ, pulsing with the vibration of life itself. In his heart, man felt the good of life, its sincere purpose. He was of one heart, but there were those who permitted evil feelings to enter. They were said to be of two hearts. The last of man's important centers lay under his navel, the organ some people now call the solar plexus. As this name signifies, it was the throne in man of the Creator himself. From it he directed all the functions of man. The first people knew no sickness. Not until evil entered the world did persons get sick in the body or head. It was then that a medicine man, knowing how man was constructed, could tell what was wrong with a person by examining these centers. First, he had laid his hands on them, the top of the head, above the eyes, the throat, the chest, the belly. The hands of the medicine man were seer instruments. They could feel the vibrations from each center and tell him in which life ran strongest or weakest. Sometimes the trouble was just a bellyache from uncooked food or a cold in the head. But other times it came from outside, drawn by the person's own evil thoughts or from those of a two hearts. In this case, the medicine man took out from his medicine pouch a small crystal about 1.5 inches across, held it in the sun to get it in working order, and then looked through it at each of the centers. In this manner, he could see what caused the trouble and often the very face of the two hearts person who had caused the illness. There was nothing magical about the crystal, medicine man always said. An ordinary person could see nothing when he looked through it. The crystal merely objectified the vision of the center which controlled his eyes, and which the medicine man had developed for this very purpose. Thus the first people understood themselves, and this was the first world they lived upon. Its name was Tokpela, endless space. Its direction was west. Its color, Singyangpu, yellow. Its mineral, Sekizvu, gold. Significant upon it were Katoya, the snake with a big head, Usoko, the fat-eating bird, and Muha, the little four-leaved plant. On it, the first people were pure and happy. End of chapter 1. Chapter 2. Tokpa, the second world. So the first people kept multiplying and spreading over the face of the land and were happy. Although they were of different colors and spoke different languages, they felt as one and understood one another without talking. It was the same with the birds and animals. They all suckled at the breast of their Mother Earth, who gave them her milk of grass, seeds, fruit, and corn, and they all felt as one people and animals. But gradually there were those who forgot the commands of Sotutman and the Spider Woman to respect their Creator. More and more they used the vibratory centers of their bodies solely for earthly purposes, forgetting that their primary purpose was to carry out the plan of creation. There then came among them Lavahoya, the talker. He came in the form of a bird called Mokni, bird like a mockingbird. And the more he kept talking, the more he convinced them of the differences between them, the differences between people and animals, and the differences between the people themselves by reason of the colors of their skins, their speech, and belief in the plan of the Creator. It was then that animals drew away from people. The guardian spirit of animals laid his hands on their hind legs just below the tail, making them become wild and scatter from the people in fear. You can see this slightly oily spot today on deer and antelope, on the sides of their back legs as they throw up their tails to run away. In the same way, people began to divide and draw away from one another, those of different races and languages, then those who remembered the plan of creation and those who did not. There came among them a handsome one, Kawquai, in the form of a snake with a big head. He led the people still farther away from one another and their pristine wisdom. They became suspicious of one another and accused one another wrongfully until they became fierce and warlike and began to fight one another. All the time, Mokni kept talking and Kawquai became more beguiling. There was no rest, no peace. But among all the people of different races and languages, there were a few in every group who still lived by the laws of creation. To them came Sotunang. He came with the sound as of a mighty wind and suddenly appeared before them. He said, "I have observed this state of affairs. It is not good. It is so bad I talked to my uncle Taiowa about it. We have decided this world must be destroyed and another one created so you people can start over again. You are the ones we have chosen." They listened carefully to their instructions. Said Sotungnang, "You will go to a certain place. Your Kopavi, vibratory center on top of the head, will lead you. This inner wisdom will give you the sight to see a certain cloud, which you will follow by day, and a certain star, which you will follow by night. Take nothing with you. Your journey will not end until the cloud stops and the star stops." So all over the world, these chosen people suddenly disappeared from their homes and people and began following the cloud by day and the star by night. Many other people asked them where they were going, and when they were told, laughed at them. "We don't see any cloud or any star either," they said. This was because they had lost their inner vision of the Kopavi on the crown of their head. The door was closed to them. Still, there were a very few who went along anyway because they believed the people who did see the cloud and the star. This was all right. After many days and nights, the first people arrived at the certain place. Soon others came and asked, "What are you doing here?" And they said, "We were told by Sotungnang to come here." The other people said, "We too were led here by the vapor and the star." They were all happy together because they were of the same mind and understanding, even though they were of different races and languages. When the last ones arrived, Sotungnang appeared. "Well, you are all here. You people I have chosen to save from the destruction of this world. Now come with me." He led them to a big mound where the ant people lived, stamped on the roof, and commanded the ant people to open up their home. When an opening was made on top of the anthill, Sotungnang said to the people, "Now you will enter this ant kiva, where you will be safe when I destroy the world. While you are here, I want you to learn a lesson from these ant people. They are industrious. They gather food in the summer for the winter. They keep cool when it is hot and warm when it is cool. They live peacefully with one another. They obey the plan of creation." So the people went down to live with the ant people. When they were all safe and settled, Taiowa commanded Sotungnang to destroy the world. Sotungnang destroyed it by fire because the Fire Clan had been its leaders. He rained fire upon it. He opened up the volcanoes. Fire came from above and below and all around until the earth, the waters, the air, all was one element, fire. And there was nothing left except the people safe inside the womb of the earth. This was the end of Tokpela, the first world. Emergence to the second world. While this was going on, the people lived happily underground with the ant people. Their homes were just like the people's homes on the earth's surface being destroyed. There were rooms to live in and rooms where they stored their food. There was light to see by, too. The tiny bits of crystal in the sand of the anthill had absorbed the light of the sun, and by using the inner vision of the center behind their eyes, they could see by its reflection very well. Only one thing troubled them. The food began to run short. It had not taken Sotungnang long to destroy the world, nor would it taken him long to create another one. But it was taking a long time for the first world to cool off before the second world could be created. That was why the food was running short. "Do not give us so much of the food you have worked so hard to gather and store," the people said. "Yes, you are our guest," the ant people told them. "What we have is yours also." So the ant people continued to deprive themselves of food in order to supply their guests. Every day they tied their belts tighter and tighter. That is why ants today are so small around the waist. Finally, that which had been the first world cooled off. Sotungnang purified it. Then he began to create the second world. He changed its form completely, putting land where the water was and water where the land had been, so the people upon their emergence would have nothing to remind them of the previous wicked world. When all was ready, he came to the roof of the ant kiva, stamped on it, and gave his call. Immediately, the chief of the ant people went up to the opening and rolled back the nuta. Young Ai, come in. You are welcome, he called. Sotonang spoke first to the ant people. I am thanking you for doing your part in helping to save these people. It will always be remembered, this you have done. The time will come when another world will be destroyed, and when wicked people know their last day on earth has come. They will sit by an anthill and cry for the ants to save them. Now, having fulfilled your duty, you may go forth to this second world I have created and take your place as ants. Then Sotonang said to the people, make your emergence now to this second world I have created. It is not quite so beautiful as the first world, but it is beautiful just the same. You will like it. So multiply and be happy. But remember your Creator and the laws He gave you. When I hear you singing joyful praises to Him, I will know you are my children, and you will be close to me in your hearts. So the people emerged to the second world. Its name was Tokpa, dark midnight. Its direction was south, its color blue, its mineral Kochasiva, silver. Chiefs upon it were Salavi, the spruce, Quahu, the eagle, and Golichillo, the skunk. It was a big land, and the people multiplied rapidly, spreading over it to all directions, even to the other side of the world. This did not matter, for they were so close together in spirit they could see and talk to each other from the center on top of the head. Because the store was still open, they felt close to Sotonang, and they sang joyful praises to the Creator, Taiowa. They did not have the privilege of living with the animals, though, for the animals were wild and kept apart. Being separated from the animals, the people tended to their own affairs. They built homes, then villages and trails between them. They made things with their hands and stored food like the ant people. Then they began to trade and barter with one another. This was when the trouble started. Everything they needed was on this second world, but they began to want more. More and more they traded for things they didn't need, and the more goods they got, the more they wanted. This was very serious, for they did not realize they were drawing away, step by step, from the good life given them. They just forgot to sing joyful praises to the Creator, and soon began to sing praises for the goods they bartered and stored. Before long, it happened as it had to happen. The people began to quarrel and fight, and then wars between villages began. Still, there were a few people in every village who sang the song of their creation, but the wicked people laughed at them until they could sing it only in their hearts. Even so, Sotonang heard it through their centers and the centers of the earth. Suddenly one day he appeared before them. Spider-Woman tells me your thread is running out on this world, he said. That is too bad. The Spider Clan was your leader, and you were making good progress until this state of affairs began. Now my uncle, Taiowa, and I have decided we must do something about it. We are going to destroy this second world, just as soon as we put you people who still have the song in your hearts in a safe place. So again, as on the first world, Sotognon called on the ant people to open up their underground world for the chosen people. When they were safely underground, Sotonang commanded the twins, Bokangoya and Bolongoihoya, to leave their posts at the north and south ends of the world's axis, where they were stationed to keep the earth properly rotating. The twins had hardly abandoned their stations when the world, with no one to control it, teetered off balance, spun around crazily, then rolled over twice. Mountains plunged into seas with a great splash. Seas and lakes sloshed over the land, and as the world spun through cold and lifeless space, it froze into solid ice. This was the end of Tokpa, the second world. Emergence to the third world. For many years, all the elements that had comprised the second world were frozen into a motionless and lifeless lump of ice. But the people were happy and warm with the ant people in their underground world. They watched their food carefully, although the ants' waste became still smaller. They wove sashes and blankets together and told stories. Eventually, Sotunang ordered Poikanhoya and Palongohoya back to their stations at the poles of the world axis. With a great shudder and a splintering of ice, the planet began rotating again. When it was revolving smoothly about its own axis and stately moving in its universal orbit, the ice began to melt and the world began to warm to life. Sotunang set about creating the third world, arranging earths and seas, planting mountains and plains with their proper coverings, and creating all forms of life. When the earth was ready for occupancy, he came to the ant kiva with the proper approach as before and said, "Open the door, it is time for you to come out." Once again, when the nuta was rolled back, he gave the people their instructions. "I have saved you so you can be planted again on this new third world. But you must always remember the two things I am saying to you now. First, respect me and one another. And second, sing in harmony from the tops of the hills. When I do not hear you singing praises to your Creator, I will know you have gone back to evil again." So the people climbed up the ladder from the ant kiva, making their emergence to the third world. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. Kuskurza, the third world. Its name was Kuskurza, its direction east, its color red. Chiefs upon it were the mineral palasiva, copper, the plant piva, tobacco, the bird anguisi, crow, and the animal chuvio, antelope. Upon it once more the people spread out, multiplied, and continued their progress on the road of life. In the first world, they had lived simply with the animals. In the second world, they had developed handicrafts, homes, and villages. Now in the third world, they multiplied in such numbers and advanced so rapidly that they created big cities, countries, a whole civilization. This made it difficult for them to conform to the plan of creation and to sing praises to Tayowa and Sotunang. More and more of them became wholly occupied with their own earthly plans. Some of them, of course, retained the wisdom granted them upon their emergence. With this wisdom, they understood that the farther they proceeded on the road of life and the more they developed, the harder it was. That was why their world was destroyed every so often to give them a fresh start. They were especially concerned because so many people were using their reproductive power in wicked ways. There was one woman who was becoming known throughout the world for her wickedness in corrupting so many people. She even boasted that so many men were giving her turquoise necklaces. For her favors, she could wind them around a ladder that reached to the end of the world's axis. So the people with wisdom sang louder and longer their praises to the Creator from the tops of their hills. The other people hardly heard them. Under the leadership of the Bow clan, they began to use their creative power in another evil and destructive way. Perhaps this was caused by that wicked woman, but some of them made a potuwota shield made of hide, and with their creative power made it fly through the air. On this, many of the people flew to a big city, attacked it, and returned so fast no one knew where they came from. Soon the people of many cities and countries were making patuvotas and flying on them to attack one another. So corruption and war came to the third world as it had to the others. This time, Sotonong came to Spider-Woman and said, "There's no use waiting until the thread runs out this time. Something has to be done, lest the people with the song in their hearts are corrupted and killed off too. It will be difficult, with all this destruction going on, for them to gather at the far end of the world I have designated, but I will help them. Then you will save them when I destroy this world with water." "How shall I save them?" asked the Spider-Woman. "When you get there, look about you," commanded Sutanong. "You will see these tall plants with hollow stems. Cut them down and put the people inside. Then I will tell you what to do next." The Spider-Woman did as he instructed her. She cut down the hollow reeds, and as the people came to her, she put them inside with a little water and hurusuki, the cornmeal dough, for food, and sealed them up. When all the people were thus taken care of, Sotunong appeared. "Now you get in to take care of them, and I will seal you up," he said. "Then I will destroy the world." So he loosed up the waters upon the earth. Waves higher than mountains rolled in upon the land. Continents broke asunder and sank beneath the seas, and still the rain fell. The waves rolled in. The people sealed up in their hollow reeds heard the mighty rushing of the waters. They felt themselves tossed high in the air and dropping back to the water. Then all was quiet, and they knew they were floating. For a long, long time, so long a time that it seemed it would never end, they kept floating. Finally, their moment ceased. The Spider-Woman unsealed their hollow reeds, took them by the tops of their heads, and pulled them out. "Bring out all the food that is left over," she commanded. The people brought out their hurusugi. It was still the same size, although they had been eating it all this time. Looking about them, they saw they were on a little piece of land that had been the top of one of their highest mountains. All else, as far as they could see, was water. This was all that remained of the third world. "There must be some dry land somewhere we can go to," they said. "Where is the new fourth world that Sotunong has created for us?" They sent many kinds of birds, one after another, to fly over the waters and find it. But they all came back tired out without having seen any sign of land. Next, they planted a reed that grew high into the sky. Up it they climbed and stared over the surface of the waters, but they saw no sign of land. Then Sotunong appeared to Spider-Woman and said, "You must continue traveling on. Your inner wisdom will guide you. The door at the top of your head is open." So Spider-Woman directed the people to make round, flat boats of the hollow reeds they had come in and to crawl inside. Again, they entrusted themselves to the water and the inner wisdom to guide them. For a long time they drifted with the wind and the movement of the waters and came to another rocky island. "It is bigger than the other one, but it is not big enough," they said, looking around them and thinking they heard a low rumbling noise. "No, it is not big enough," said Spider-Woman. So the people kept traveling toward the rising sun in their reed boats. After a while they said, There is that low rumbling noise we heard. We must be coming to land again." So it was. A big land, it seemed, with grass and trees and flowers beautiful to their weary eyes. On it they rested a long time. Some of the people wanted to stay, but Spider-Woman said, "No, it's not the place. You must continue on." Leaving their boats, they traveled by foot eastward across the island to the water's edge. Here they found growing some more of the hollow plants like reeds or bamboo, which they cut down. Directed by Spider-Woman, they laid some of these in a row with another row on top of them in the opposite direction and tied them all together with vines and leaves. This made a raft big enough for one family or more. When enough rafts were made for all, Spider-Woman directed them to make paddles. "You will be going uphill from now on, and you will have to make your own way. So Sutunang told you, the farther you go, the harder it gets." After long and weary traveling, still east and a little north, the people began to hear the low rumbling noise and saw land. One family and clan after another landed with joy. The land was long, wide, and beautiful. The earth was rich and flat, covered with trees and plants, seed bearers and nut bearers providing lots of food. The people were happy and kept staying there year after year. "No, this is not the fourth world," Spider-Woman kept telling them. "It is too easy and pleasant for you to live on, and you would soon fall into evil ways again. You must go on. Have we not told you the way becomes harder and longer?" Reluctantly, the people traveled eastward by foot across the island to the far shore. Again, they made rafts and paddles. When they were ready to set forth, Spider-Woman said, "Now I have done all I am commanded to do for you. You must go on alone and find your own place of emergence. Just keep your doors open, and your spirits will guide you." "Thank you, Spider-Woman, for all you have done for us," they said sadly. "We will remember what you have said." Alone they set out, traveling east and a little north, paddling hard day and night for many days as if they were paddling uphill. At last they saw land. It rose high above the waters, stretching from the north to south as far as they could see. A great land, a mighty land, their inner wisdom told them. The fourth world, they cried to each other. As they got closer, its shores rose higher and higher in a steep wall of mountains. There seemed no place to land. "Let us go north. There we will find our place of emergence," said some. So they went north, but the mountains rose higher and steeper. "No, let us go south. There we will find our place of emergence," cried others. So they turned south and traveled many days more, but here too the mountain's wall reared up higher. Not knowing what to do, the people stopped paddling, opened the doors on top of their heads, and let themselves be guided. Almost immediately the water smoothed out, and they felt their rafts caught up in a gentle current. Before long, they landed and joyfully jumped out upon sandy shore. "The fourth world," they cried. "We have reached our place of emergence at last." Soon all the others arrived, and when they were gathered together, Sotunang appeared before them. "I see you are all here. That is good. This is the place I have prepared for you. Look now at the way you have come." Looking to the west and the south, the people could see sticking out of the water the islands upon which they had rested. "They are the footprints of your journey," continued Sotunang, "the tops of the high mountains of the third world which I destroyed. Now watch." As the people watched them, the closest one sank under the water, then the next, until all were gone, and they could see only water. "See," said Sotunang, I have washed away even the footprints of your emergence. The stepping stones which I left for you down on the bottom of the seas lie all the proud cities, the flying patavotas, and the worldly treasures corrupted with evil. And those people who found no time to sing praises to the Creator from the tops of their hills. But the day will come, if you persevere, the memory and the meaning of your emergence, when those stepping stones will emerge again to prove the truth you speak. This at last was the end of the third world, Kuskurza, an ancient name for which there is no modern meaning. Chapter 4. Tuwaqachi, the fourth world. I have something more to say before I leave you. Sotunang told the people as they stood at their place of emergence on the shore of the present fourth world. This is what he said. The name of this fourth world is Tuwaqachi, world complete. You will find out why. It is not all beautiful and easy like the previous ones. It has height and depth, heat and cold, beauty and barrenness. It has everything for you to choose from. What you choose will determine if this time you can carry out the plan of creation on it, or whether it must in time be destroyed too. Now you will separate and go different ways to claim all the earth for the Creator. Each group of you will follow your own star until it stops. There you will settle. Now I must go. But you will have help from the proper deities, from your good spirits. Just keep your own doors open, and always remember what I have told you. This is what I say. Then he disappeared. The people began to move slowly off the shore and into the land. When they heard the low rumbling noise again, looking around, they saw a handsome man and asked, "Are you the one who has been making these noises we have heard?" "Yes." "I made them to help you find the way here. Do you not recognize me? My name is Masa. I am the caretaker, the guardian and protector of this land." The people recognized Masa. He had been appointed head caretaker of the third world. But, becoming a little self-important, he had lost his humility before the Creator. Being a spirit, he could not die. So Taiowa took his appointment away from him and made him the deity of death and the underworld. This job below was not as pleasant as the one above. Then when the third world was destroyed, Taiowa decided to give him another chance, as he had the people, and appointed him to guard and protect this fourth world as its caretaker. He was the first being the people had met here, and they were very respectful to him. "Will you give us your permission to live on this land?" they asked. "Yes, I will give you my permission as owner of the land." "Will you be our leader?" the people then asked. "No," replied Masa. "A greater one than I has given you a plan to fulfill first. When the previous parts of the world were pushed underneath the water, this new land was pushed up in the middle to become the backbone of the earth. You are now standing on its Atvila, west side slope. But you have not yet made your migrations. You have not yet followed your stars to the place where you will meet and settle. This you must do before I can become your leader. But if you go back to evil ways again, I will take over the earth from you, for I am its caretaker, guardian, and protector. To the north you will find cold and ice. That is the back door to this land, and those who may come through this back door will enter without my consent. So go now and claim the land with my permission." When Masa disappeared, the people divided into groups and clans to begin their migrations. May we meet again, they all called back to one another. This is how it all began on this, our present fourth world. As we know, its name is Tuwaqachi, world complete. Its direction, north. Its color, Sikanyakbu, yellowish white. Chiefs upon it are the tree Nomapi, juniper, the bird Mongwa, the owl, the animal Tohopko, the mountain lion, and the mixed mineral Sigyapala. Where all the people went on their migrations to the ends of the earth and back, and what they have done to carry out the plan of creation from this place of the beginning to the present time, is to be told next by all the clans as they came in. End of chapter 4. Thank you for joining me. If you like what you hear, what you see, like, share, and subscribe. Be blessed.